soon.
So yeah, what Theo Von, huh?
You know, we got to aspire to be something. You know?
Yeah.
Theo Von is like, he's putting out some entertaining stuff, you know? I don't know if it's necessarily, I don't even know how you describe it, but it's entertaining.
Yeah, where's he from? Like, what's his background?
America. Dude. And I apologize if I kind of come across with some of his, like, you know, ignorance. What do you call that again?
Idiosyncrasies?
Yeah, well, because I watch him quite a bit,
Right,
you know. And
right.
he says "dude" a lot,
Yeah.
you know.
Huh.
But he's a Southern American guy. I'm pretty sure, you know, he's got the mullet going on. He used to be a big partier, but there's actually a big conspiracy theory around him too.
What's that?
Have you seen that?
No, I have not. What's that?
I don't know, but he's like a planted dude.
Oh,
you know
okay.
what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he comes from some super wealthy family, and he's just an actor, and this is like a whole character that he's just built, you know, rather than being like a recovering addict and party guy. You know?
Right. But, is that the whole right wing?
Yeah, who knows?
Thing?
It's fun. You know, it to me. Everything that I consume on, you know, what do you call it? I call it YouTube University. It's like, if I like it, I want to watch it.
Yeah.
I don't watch negative stuff.
Yeah.
When I'm like scrolling and I see like, oh, you know, I like to know a little bit about what's going on in the world, but I don't need it all day, every day.
Yeah.
That's why I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
Because the news is negative and toxic.
Pure negativity, man.
Oh my, it's
crazy.
Like just fear, you know, everywhere. And I have a grasp of what's going on in the world, but I don't focus on it, man. So watching Theo Von's interview with Donald Trump, you know, like that's just entertaining.
So I haven't seen that one. What?
You have to watch it, dude. Shout out to Theo, man. Hopefully one day I'll be on your podcast.
And was this before the election that he had him on? I think it was, right? Because everyone was complaining about why are they platforming Trump?
Yeah,
and,
I think so. I think so. And he's actually really cool about not taking a side in the stuff that I've watched. I mean, I don't watch all of his stuff, you know.
Sure.
In the stuff that I've watched, I wouldn't be able to know where he lies. I just know he likes to party, or he used to.
Right. That's cool, you know. I really like that. I remember when I was in grad school, we had this one out of all of our professors. We had one professor who, and we were studying theology, who you just didn't know what he actually believed or not. And that was so interesting. Right, because he could play both ends, and he was like, you know, he was completely objective. He can inform on this end, he could inform on that end. It's like, but what do you believe, right? Like, it's so. But a lot of other professors don't. They lay their cards on the table. This is what I believe. But I always found him a little more impressive because you didn't know.
I will say I admire that, and I had a teacher like that that really inspired me. And those people that know me closely, I will take any side of a debate. You know, like I will be pro Trump to someone who hates Trump. Right. Just to be like, wow, you know, tell me, you know, or vice versa. Like, tell me why you love this side of politics. And I'm Canadian. I don't even know you know what right or left means. I really enjoy the discussion. I really enjoy the debate side of things, especially when it comes to like spirituality and religion. I love to hear, you know, I grew up going to church 7 days a week. You know,
really?
7 times a week. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
wait, what religion?
Well, I was like, I started out Baptist, and then I went to Pentecostal, so Christian. Right?
Yeah.
And you know, but it was big, like youth group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Friday nights, basketball, gym, sports, youth. You know, Saturday was Bible study, and then Saturday night was like some music campfire thing. Twice on Sunday. You know, it was a big part of my teenage years, and my parents didn't force me. You know, I did it by choice.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But with that being said, I have a very open-minded position on spirituality. Right. You know, and the church too, which we're not going to get into that today.
You sure we're not going to get into that? 'Cause I'd love to get into that.
Well, maybe, let's not start with that. But maybe we'll wrap. We'll get into that later.
There you go. But no, I relate to you in terms of taking a position that. You know, people don't like pro-Trump or what have you, right? Just to add some depth to the conversation, right? Because if everyone's like, you know, on the same side, I think you're like this. I feel the natural urge to be on the other side,
right?
Just so we can have a constructive debate. You know, you need to provide the other side of the coin, but it's frowned upon sometimes.
I,
Or people think that that's what you really believe, right?
I've always been like that, but it was so cemented into my personality the first time Trump got elected. Because if I was to look at my social media and my media, that I consumed, I read a blog called or a business blog, Business Insider, like I was on that for like 10 years. And, going into Trump's first election, I was like, there is no way in the world this man will get elected.
Yeah.
Based off my views and the media I consumed.
Yeah.
And then when he was elected, I was like,
mind blown.
I believe in nothing.
Right.
Like no media anymore.
Right.
Because my media is catered to what I'm interested in.
Right.
It was so much. So then I read a quote somewhere or something, and it's like, if you don't view the opinions of the opposition as to what you believe in, how do you know what you believe in is true? You got to hear all sides of the story.
Right.
Like you really, really have to. Otherwise, you're just blindly believing in what some dude or person, woman, whatever told you. And you're like, okay, I don't think that's the way to live. Right?
That was definitely an eye-opener because I was shocked as well. I mean, the whole world was shocked. Because if you remember the... what's it called? The polls.
Yeah.
They had him losing like 10% to Hillary. Like,
crazy.
So it's like, he's not going to win. It was like when Obama was against the other dude, whoever it was at the time.
Yeah.
Like Obama had a huge poll lead and that's how it actually ended up. So when we saw Hillary with the huge poll lead and then we saw she got beat by Trump, we were just like, what the heck? Like, where did those polls come from? Like, what? How did we not see that coming?
And I think that's something important to reflect on, especially in regards to Cayman politics. It's like who they polling, who's actually voting. That's a big difference too, right? I mean, they poll registered voters, and I haven't got into like the whole science of the polls in America, but who shows up to vote that day, is a big difference, right? It's something that I really hope in my future years in Cayman is that I never want to get involved with politics on this island, but I definitely want to get involved with people voting. I want to inspire young Caymanians to register and vote and participate in their country. I will never take a side in Cayman politics. I've been here for just under 25 years as a Canadian living in the Cayman Islands. And, I've been watching it. I've been a part of it. But I will never, and by a part of it, helping people, along their journey.
Sure.
But, voting is crucial, man.
Yeah.
I really believe in democracy as like a participation thing. If you don't participate, there's no democracy, right? So, when it comes to what they polled in the States for who's voting for Trump, I don't think, that general voting class for Trump was participating in the polls. Are they emailing? Are they answering their phones? Are they at the house? I mean, I'm assuming some of them are home all day.
Right.
So maybe they got some of the door-to-door polls, but,
Yeah, I just don't trust the polls anymore after that. It's like it's not a hard science.
Yeah.
It's not biology. It's not math. It's not physics. It's just you're going out there, and I'm sure there's some science to it, but I just don't trust it anymore.
Yeah. And politics is something, man, that I say it time and time again. To me, and I'm sorry for those that have to take it very seriously. It's an entertainment. I absorb what intrigues me. I take the negative and I like skim over that, but then I just move past it. Because I don't want that negative energy in my life because it's so much. Right? It's so much. You know? I try to watch. I enjoy watching Trump talk. It's like entertainment. And Obama. Oh my gosh, have you seen the interview of Obama in between two ferns with Zach Galifianakis? You ever watch his podcast?
No, is that a recent one?
Oh my gosh, no. So Zach Galifianakis.
He was the guy in The Hangover.
Yeah,
right?
he's the guy in The Hangover. So he has like a comedy skit show called In Between Two Ferns. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Wait, maybe someone showed this to me. Maybe you showed it to me.
Maybe. So he sits down with and Brad Pitt, Obama, like all these people, and he just does this, but he's just being beyond out there. Okay. Asks the craziest stuff. And when I saw Obama on that, I hadn't had any involvement in hadn't been following U.S. politics until then. And I was like, I want to read more about this Obama guy.
Right,
that was when he was rolling out his like healthcare plan.
Okay.
And Zach was just tearing him up. And from that little short of it, and I like went and watched the whole thing, and then I started following Zach's In Between Two Ferns. There's a couple series on Netflix. You can watch them.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
So how did Obama appear to you on that?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like
so was he already elected at the time or not?
Yeah, I think he was already president.
Okay.
He was rolling out his healthcare program thing.
Yeah, Obamacare or something.
Yeah, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was just so like first off that he went on there knowing that he was going to get torn up.
Right.
No, and to be able to like Zach just hits like straight. When you watch his like interview with Brad Pitt, I thought Brad Pitt was gonna beat him up. Like he just. But obviously Brad's an actor, and I think he was acting in it.
Right.
He really pushes buttons. That'd be like you asking me like, "Oh, JR, what about this thing that you did in your life?" And I'd be like, "Can we talk about that?" But Obama was just on it. Like he hit every like. A taboo thing that you could ask Obama, he asked it, and he threw it out there, and it was just like, wow. And obviously there's got to be some kind of script, like they got to tell Obama, hey, Zach's gonna ask you these questions. Right.
I'm sure the president required that.
You would think, right? I mean, unless they just said, Zach's gonna ask you whatever you want, and we'll just edit. And then what you don't want to show, we won't show it. Maybe that's how they went down But Obama took it good, man. It was good.
Here, let's pull you a little closer.
Yeah,
I think you're
rolling out.
There you go. But
I got bad posturing on you. Like lay out here.
Yeah, I love that you can admit to liking Obama speak and Trump speak, right? Because people can't do that. It's like a hard line. But it's like, does it have to be? I mean, I like both of them too. Actually, I didn't like Trump. Before, when the whole lead up to Hillary thing, I was like against him like everybody else. And then after he got elected, I was kind of shocked and horrified. But then the way the media turned on him after that, I felt the need to kind of start defending him because it was just too obvious. It was too obvious how biased they were. And it's like, well, you're supposed to be the news. You're not supposed to be biased, right? So it's like, okay, then I the devil's advocate. I think you and I both have that. Then I started defending. Everyone was like, "Oh, you like Trump? Like, how can that be? Like, I know you. You're not a racist." It's just like.
I'll tell you what. I'm sure you saying, blew my mind how many people in this recent election, flipped.
Yeah.
Like people that I was just like, really. I remember going back to the first election one time. Me and my ex, we were on a boat trip here on the island, and we met this doctor from Nevada who owned a bunch of businesses. He was like a neurosurgeon, like super educated, owned all these businesses, and he was in the dispensary space in Nevada, right? Okay. And he was so interesting. And my girl was like this, he had like 2 PhDs and just a really like, wow, this, and I was the same way. Yeah. I was like, man, like you're awesome, Yeah. And then he dropped it.
He's a pro-Trump?
Bro, and my girl was like, out. She literally like 2 more sentences and was like, I need to go to the bathroom. And she just left.
Right.
And then I was like, man, I took that as an opportunity because I knew she would be pissed. Right. I took that as an opportunity just to dig. And I'm like, man, I don't know about politics, but educate me. Yeah. Like, what, from your point of view, as someone that I didn't say this, but someone I clearly admire, full on man crush on the dude, like how can he be, PhD medical guy and then marijuana dispensaries, you know what I mean? And just like living in Nevada, skiing and, just, dude, was like awesome. Right. And then he presented to me like his case, on what his positions were.
Interesting.
I wouldn't even begin to try to, say what he said. Right. But it was just really, I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah.
I want to hear everybody's opinion, but it's super important because I am so and this is an ignorant statement too, because I'm so removed and it doesn't affect me, even though it does, right?
Yeah,
It affects the whole world, right? But I like to live in my bubble. You know, and I mean, we're islanders. You know, what's going on in America doesn't affect us.
Yeah. Even though it does.
Don't quote me on that.
Even though
Don't use that as a little skit.
So when we were shooting the other day, we were shooting some stuff. You were there. We were on set. You told me you grew up on an island. And that was the first time you told me that, or I realized that. And just now you were telling me that you grew up sort of religious and you went to like youth clubs and Bible studies. And it just, when you were talking about the religious part, it reminded me of Cayman, right? So how first of all, what island? Where is the island? I think it's in Canada.
Yeah.
And I want to know what the similarities are between that island and Cayman.
I can't tell you enough, Badir. When I landed here, you know, like...
when was this?
I call it in 2000, August 11th, 2002. Okay?
Pre-Ivan, baby.
Yeah, pre-Ivan.
Right.
I took Ivan on the head, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother story. But the day I walked off that plane and got what I call the Cayman hug, you know, the humidity just wrapped its arms around me.
Sure.
You know,
I know that one.
I would like to say I knew then, but I was 22. So I was just like, wow, you know, what's going on? It wasn't really, I came in August. It wasn't until Easter.
The following year
That I worked every day. I don't even think I had a day off when I first got. I worked at the Seaview Hotel. For those of you that might tune in and remember the old days, and we were short staffed. I worked every day. I don't think I had maybe like a half a day. I'd be like, oh, I have a day off today because I didn't have a split shift. You know? And Easter came, and I got like, I can't remember which day it was. Like, I mean, it must have been Good Friday. Because bars weren't allowed to be open on Good Friday, right? Back then, whatever changed. But I went out on a boat, and I went and saw the camping, you know, out on the park there at one point, and everyone was boating and grilling, and the families and the kids running around, and that's how I grew up, man. I was born on an island in Scugog Township outside of Port Perry, Ontario. The island is called Scugog Island. It's about the same size as about like, you know, half a Cayman. I'm gonna get into the square footage. I mean, it had a road to it, you know, but we had a canal. You know, my dad built my mom a house on this canal. We had a little swimming pool, little bungalow, humble home, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, we had community fairs, right? Like everyone got together, Canada Day, fireworks, barbecue, everyone's grilling, you know, we met in the community circle. Yeah. And then on the boats at the beach, the sandbar, all the boats rolled up. Like the Cayman life. Now, where I'm from, that's for 2 months of the year. Right? That's like July, August, you know? And then I come here and it's like all year. Yeah. You know, it's everything that I loved about my childhood all year.
Interesting.
You know, and that was like that. Like you're so right. It's so similar to Cayman. And then even like when I moved here, you know, there was more churches than bars. You know, that's changed. Now I think there's more gyms, yoga studios, gyms, and fitness centers than there are any of them. Funny. But when it comes to, you know, what the family lifestyle was, when I came here, I always like to like reminisce and share to people. I had dinner, you know, or breakfast or lunch in more strangers' houses. Right. You know, that I met. Like I had I maybe finished work at lunch, went out on a boat, you know, ended up like jumping on someone else's boat, spending the night in Northside, you know, waking up at family's home, and just the hospitality that the Cayman culture, you know, the Cayman community gave to me when I came here. It brings me to tears, you know, almost like it was just so small town, and it's changed, but it's still here. Yeah, definitely still here. Right. You know, but I couldn't express that. If I went back to my hometown, that's gone. You know, like.
What do you mean? What's gone? Like that community vibe?
Yeah, there's no. I mean, in North America, I mean, I think some small towns maybe, but my small town where I'm from, the community vibe is gone. People don't help each other. No. People don't welcome strangers into their home. Everybody's wondering, what do you want from me? You know, where here it has been, what can I give you? You want some food? You want a drink? You know, you look thirsty, you know? I mean, like, how many times, I don't know about you, but when I was in my early 20s, I walked South Church Street a lot. You know, whether I was walking to work because the bus didn't go down there, whether my car or my scooter broke down, I walked. And only like in a couple of years, only 1 or 2 times did I ever walk all the way.
Right. Because somebody would pick you up.
Somebody would pick me up. And didn't they just pick me up? They picked me up. They gave me a drink. They did this, you know, invited me into their house. Like people just sitting on their porch. Like, hey, you know, you look thirsty. You know, come have a drink before you keep going on your walk. I was like, this is my home. I love this place. You know, it's changed a bit, but it's still here. Yeah,
I think so. You know, a lot of people are worried that it's changed and that they don't have, you know, that same community vibe anymore. You know, it's nice to know that you think that Cayman still has that vibe.
If you compare it, right? You know, when you compare it to the stratas and the communities of North America, I can't speak on all of North America. You know, the areas that I know, right? Like here, people are more looking out for you than they're looking what you're doing. You know, they're like, hey, come. Are you thirsty? You know, like I think that happens here still more, you know, in certain areas, obviously.
I wonder if that's just an island thing.
It's a small town thing.
Small town thing. There you go.
Right? It is. Small town, Florida. I mean, I did some work in Orlando for a bit, and it was a little different because the homes that I was introduced into, I got that Southern love. You know, like they just rolled out the red carpet. I wasn't a stranger, even though I was, but because like, you know, my friend brought me to his place for Thanksgiving, you know, the whole family just rolls out. Oh, you're Charlie's friend, rolls out the red carpet. You know what I mean? That's a Southern, but small town thing.
Right.
But, you know, I'd like to think there's a small town in every big town, you know, it's that, you know, community when you get away from the cities, because the cities, they're different.
I mean, I love cities though, you know, but they
for a whole different reason.
For a whole different reason, you're right. You know, because they don't have any of those things that you're talking. No one's gonna welcome you into you know. So if you come at someone's door, there's something wrong with you. I don't trust you. No, I'm not opening the door for you. Right?
But I mean, and then you know, when you go to a city, and I did some work in Orlando, and I found like my little island in the city.
Sure.
You know, like I found the places that I would frequent, the grocery store I went to. I learned the cashier's name, you know, and like the gas station I went to. I knew the guys that worked there, and I created my own little island. But I think that's because I'm a small town guy. You know, I don't want to walk by a stranger on the street and not smile and say hello. However, that's got me burned, you know, many times in my travels.
Wait, tell me about that then, because I definitely relate to that as well. How'd you get burned with that?
I was, so I'd been living here for quite a few years, for a couple of years. Then Ivan hit, right? Ivan hit 2004, September 11th. That's you know, we cover
Where were you? Where were you?
Later. Okay. Marriott, a hotel. Anyways, we'll come back to that. So I stayed until October 31st. Okay. And then I went back to Toronto because my place of business was destroyed. They weren't going to reopen it. And, you know, me and my buddy Nick Beber, love you, shout out. We were going to go travel the world. That was our plan. And we moved to Toronto. We were going to spend the winter in Toronto and then go travel the world. And we moved downtown, you know, did the city thing, you know, yin yang, right? I had this awesome apartment, you know, overlooking the city, you know, snow. Oh, it was so beautiful. It was so cool. But let me tell you, man, it killed me. I would walk down the street smiling at people. People don't even look at you. I couldn't figure out why until, like I said, I got burned a few times. I was on a subway, sat down on the subway, bunch of normal people chilling, and I nodded, smiled at the guy across the subway, the car from me, and he literally jumped out of his seat. Normal looking dude, you know what I mean? Nothing sus about him.
Right.
Jumped out of his seat and pretty much jumped in my lap and just got in my face. And I don't know what he was on. He was on something. And just, you know, he didn't attack me, but he definitely pushed way past my comfort zone, way past my personal space, you know, and just in there, you know. And I'm like, and people started leaving the car.
Right.
People were like, this is going to escalate. And I'm like, I'm in the city. And why
phone blowing up, blowing up.
Why are people...
So you gave him an inch, he took a mile. But was he like...
He wasn't...
Was it violent?
No.
It was
just intense. You know, like I said, he was pretty much sitting in my lap, you know? And he was just like, where are you from? Da, da, da. And just like buggy-eyed. Like, I think he had probably been sitting there on something and being like, act sober. And then when I gave him the permission to come out, man, he just pounced, you know. That was one time. You know, another time in the city, same thing, standing in the subway and just like engage somebody and then they just come right up in your space, you know. I think, you know, the population in the city of people that are dealing with like mental illness and you know, addictions, it's way more dense, you know? So, you know, on the island, obviously we have people here, you know, in small towns that have their problems. We know who they are. We know who their siblings are, you know? You all know who my brother is. You know, we know who these people are, right? So we can navigate that as we choose, right? But there, you know, you just got to be careful, right? Like, keep it to yourself because you don't know who you're giving permission, you know, to come into your space where you might not feel comfortable.
I remember once too, I was in New York and I saw this woman, I think maybe it was at Starbucks. And then like a couple hours later, I see her again, which is strange because you're in New York. So I'm like, oh, hey, I just said hi. And she kind of like, I was like the most scary person to her ever, right? But it was like a natural response because I'm like, oh, we just saw each other. Like, and now here we are in New York in another place and we see each other. No, she's like, you know, and just like, I'm like, okay, you know, can't say hi.
And how is that when you're working though? Because you're in film, you know, you've traveled, you've done some stuff around. Is it the same in the workspace kind of deal? Like if you did like a set job, you know, in one town, and then you run into some same people in New York, would they still have their guard up?
What do you mean, like a film crew?
Yeah, if you were just like, hey, you've done a bunch of film stuff here in Cayman, you know, some guys like in the support at any level in production. It's a big team, right?
Yeah.
And then you run into them doing something in New York. Would that be an icebreaker enough to like?
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's a work thing. There's already a familiar
Exactly.
It's that stranger.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what a small town does is that we all have something in common. We live here.
Right.
You know, so the small town stranger thing is broken by the unity of a small town.
Right.
You know?
There's a similarity. There's something that's shared that even if you don't know who they are,
you live here.
You live here.
Right.
So that already tells me a lot about you.
100%.
That you live here.
And even with our tourists, right? You know, the Cayman tourists, it's not the same, you know, someone that travels to Cayman probably goes to Vegas, you know, or goes to New York, but it's not the same in the masses. It's a unique person that chooses to come to the Cayman Islands, right? It's a unique person that chooses to come and live here.
Right.
You know? And everybody has that in common, which, you know, I'm assuming you're in a small town, and if you're in a small town in Alabama or in Ontario, Canada, y'all got something, you know, unless it's a tourist town. My town turned into a tourist town.
Is that right?
Like a cute little old school, you know, early 1900s, you know, architecture, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you know, really cute little town. So tons of city folk, you know, come into my little town.
That makes sense.
So then there's a bit of like a tourist guard, you know, like when it comes to strangers and loses that small town feel. But,
right.
You know, but I think even in Cayman, the residents, and I like to brag about this, is that everybody that lives here, most that live here, obviously there's exceptions, wants to be here, right? You love this place. You're here. Your family's from here. You're from here. You're working, whether you're the guy working at the gas station or the girl, you know, working in the bank or most people are here because they want to be here. So that's another like little thing that we all connect with. Right. Obviously there's that kid that grew up on a small island and he just can't wait to get out, or she can't wait to get out. Right. But then they generally go away and go, I miss my island. Yeah. You know,
that's true. More times than not, that's what happens.
For sure.
They appreciate more where they came from.
You it's different personalities for everybody, but the general, I think that everyone has something in common, especially if you've been here a long time. If you've been here a long time, you've navigated the small town, problems, the high school the college problems, whatever it is, right? Where, everyone wants to talk about your stuff, but if you've been here long enough, everyone has something that you can talk about. Yeah. Because we all know each other. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like we all made mistakes. Everyone's done some things they're not proud of or whatever. I mean, those of you that haven't, congratulations. But all of us have done different, made some choices that we're not super proud of. Right. We all live with each other, you know, and we help each other move past that, which is, I think, a great thing about this place too. And any small town, I think. Right. Cayman's got to be open-minded too, more so. Because there's so much immigration. Right. Small town in Alabama, I think very few people move there. Right. But in Cayman, you guys have been always a place, of people that come here for the warmth and the beauty. Sure. Something that you've always had to, navigate and work with, so.
Which I really like, just all the different cultures. Like I was away in Europe earlier this year, and then when I came back, the first thing I heard, I'm like driving to my apartment, I hear a South African accent. And I'm like, I'm back in Cayman, baby.
It wasn't the Cayman accent.
It wasn't the Cayman. It was the South African accent. I'm like, yeah, back, because I don't hear that accent anywhere, right? But in Cayman, I was like, yeah, I know that, And there's just nothing against South Africans, obviously, but I just knew where I was when I heard it, right?
You just triggered like such a memorable foot in mouth story from my past.
What's that?
So I grew up in a school that was in a part of Toronto or, east of the city. So after I left the island town, I went to suburbs to go to high school and school, right? Okay. Things were easier, accessible. Okay. And my school was so ethnically diverse with first generation, I think you'd call it, Canadians. Right. So their parents had immigrated, but they were born in Canada. Got it. So whether they were from China, from huge Trinidad, Trini culture, big Guyanese community in my hometown. Like people from all over the world lived there, and all the kids, we all sounded the same. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the kids could turn on their accents, but at school it was like super ethnically diverse, but everybody was Canadian, right? And then I come to Cayman, and you meet somebody that looks like they might be from Asia, and they're from the Philippines, or they're from Japan, right? They're from somewhere, and they grew up there, and then they came to Cayman, right? The Guyanese are thick, have that beautiful accent, and so I'd been living here for a few years, and I go to to San Francisco, to like the Bay Area for a wedding, and we are on like the bachelor party out, and we met a bunch of people, and I met these two, we met this other group of girls, and the girls were Asian, and I was, I don't know, I'd had a few drinks or whatever, right? And I had said,
foot in mouth,
foot in mouth, and I was just being so like pure, and it just came across the wrong way. I was like, it's so nice to, I don't even know if I said it's so nice. Say? I just said, it was like, wow, it's cool to, meet some Asian girls that speak American, or like that have I don't remember the exact words. And what I really meant was like, that's what I'm familiar with, And because of living here, when you meet somebody that's from they're from there.
They're from there. They have an accent. They speak the language.
They speak the language. And it's a beautiful thing about Cayman, but I think it was also a beautiful thing about, where I grew up, because it really taught me to be, so open to every culture, because I just had this exposure that there was no difference. Even my parents, man. I think my parents, and I had heard it from a Caymanian, and I won't say his name, but you know who you are. He said, "Oh, us Caymanians, man, we hate it. We hate every culture equally." And you can, it was straight jest, right? But he was like, my parents would always be like, "Oh, these drivers or these people or that people." But any friend I ever brought to my house, no matter where their parents were from, because they were all from my hometown, my parents treated them no different. Never taught me you know, to look at, to be like, oh, those kids are from, you know, wherever, you should be careful. I never heard that once.
Right.
Never once in my childhood. I thank my parents for that.
Yeah.
You know, they were really great at raising me, you know, to really be like, you know, they were triggered by accents. If I brought like my buddy home, you know, and if he was like, you know, white kid from wherever, but if he walked in the house talking like a gangster, my dad, he'd trigger on that.
Yeah.
You know, but if they didn't have the gangster limp, then everyone was safe. You know? Walking in with the pants sagging down. I think I sagged my pants once or twice. And my dad, you know, that was a thing in the 90s too, right?
Yeah.
And my dad, he pulled my pants down and pushed me over.
Yeah.
Like in front of my friends. Because I was sagging.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He has his boundaries, right?
Oh, yeah, he did. He's like, pull your pants up.
Sounds very open-minded, but you got to draw the line somewhere sometime.
Yeah. He's like, be respectful.
Yeah.
I don't want to see your underwear.
Yeah.
You know, and that carried into my adulthood too, you know. I ran the skate park here for a few years. And
I forgot about that. You totally did run that.
And that was like, I call that the MTV Lil Wayne era.
Yeah.
Where every kid, you know, it was like pre-Facebook, right? Or just when Facebook was coming out. So every kid, especially in Cayman, but I think the world or North America, was influenced by MTV.
Right.
Right. Rap City.
Right.
You know, like Lil Wayne was popping off. Sag your pants, be a thug, you know, that's the cool thing. Disrespect authority.
Right.
You know, because there was no other, what are they going to watch? Church TV? You know, like, everything that was cool that the kids could absorb in the media was MTV.
Right.
Right? Like, I mean, am I forgetting something else?
No, probably not, right? I mean, other than like, you know, just like cartoons and stuff, but that's cartoons. That's not
that was like kids. But when it comes to young men and women, you know, and when you watched MTV, sure, you could look at some of the good, I don't even want to say good, some of the pop bands maybe. Yeah. You know, and like, oh yeah, Boys to Men or whatever. Whoever. You know, whoever, In Sync, you know, like, you know, I don't want to be like those guys. I want to be like Ice Cube. I want to be like DMX. You know, I want to be like and then Lil Wayne comes on the scene. And it was, you know, all these kids that I worked with, you know, they really just thought like, oh, being a thug is the coolest thing. Right. And that was triggering for me. Because that was the one thing that my family did instill in me. Right. You know, if somebody has that, don't look you in the eye, talk to you, you know, pants sagging, you know, limp walking, that's a sign of survival. You need to be careful, you know. And I always try to like be welcoming to all, because 75% of the kids that would come to the skate park were that, you know, and then regularly, you know, and then 25% of the kids were great. You know, I mean, all the kids were good kids, but on the surface, you know, what they were presenting was, oh, it's cool to be a thug, you know, and that was the obstacle. And you guys, if you guys watch us, you know who I'm talking about.
That's so interesting. You know, MTV was the outlet, right, for culture, for music.
It was the coolest thing ever.
Right, and so much has changed now. There's just so many different outlets, right?
My sister and I argue a lot about or debate a lot about social media destroying the world. And I'm like, so, you know, here or there, but I love to take the positive side of social media and just say, hey, any kid, any human can sit there and go, I don't know if I agree with that. And they can Google it. And they can find both sides to every argument if they want, but they can find the sides that have good vibration and feel good and be like, this is better. You know, loving your neighbor and being kind to people is way better than being a thug. Is way better than robbing or stealing or subjecting, you know, women or whatever you want to do. Like, I think that social media empowers, you know, the knowledge onto every single person, especially the youth, you know. And I think the movement, someone once interviewed a K-pop music manager, was like, why do you think K-pop is so big right now with the youth? And he's like, because it's good, it's happy. Go to a K-pop concert, everybody's like happy, dancing and loving each other. There's no fighting, there's no thug. You go to a Lil Wayne concert and, you know, you're just like, whoa, I mean, especially in the 90s, you know, or 2000s, I guess. I don't know when Lil Wayne came out, but, you know, that was like a whole different vibe, you know. I mean, I'm sure the same thing was if you went to an In Sync concert, I guess back then. I never
or a Taylor Swift concert
Taylor
today,
Swift,
right?
I guess, but when you look at those, people are choosing, to feel good, right? And because social media is saying to you, hey, it's still cool. You can find it. It's cool to be good. Obviously, there's some like negative streaming stuff out there, but I think people want to gravitate towards feeling good and be good than negative and hurt, So
you take the more positive spin on social media.
100%.
And so I guess your sister's like, this is the worst thing ever.
She's a hand, she like deleted her profile. She ended up creating.
I've been there. I've deleted my Instagram at one point. I've never really revived it. It's just
I've definitely deleted. And as a 46-year-old, I do use TikTok, and I've deleted that several times.
Okay, yeah, I've done it twice. I downloaded it once. I was on it for 15 minutes. Like I can't, and deleted it. Put it back up, deleted it again. I'm like, maybe it's not for me. I don't know. But teach me. Should I be on TikTok?
I think everyone should be on TikTok.
Yeah.
And because...
Except your sister. She doesn't like hearing that.
I beat her up. I'm like, well, she's my older sister too, right? I think because TikTok, you personally, like all media, you curate it. Whereas in Instagram, it was an algorithm thing. But with TikTok, you literally have a button that you're like, don't show me this. I don't want this kind of content.
Right.
So it filters back in. You have to kind of re-curate as you go. But, you roll on my TikTok. It's DIY, solar. It's surfing, a lot of surfing. It's art, and then it's a lot of spiritual, podcast stuff, health and fitness, Joe Rogan and all those guys, all over my... But you very rarely will see one of those trendy dance videos.
Yeah.
Or like something that sucks me in all the time. And I always, after a while, when I realize I spent a few hours doing it, are the movie clips. It's a big thing on TikTok where the guys
like scenes from a movie?
Yeah, they take a movie and then they just clip it and then they post it. And then you're like, oh, I want to see the next scene.
Right.
So you go to their page, you watch the next video.
Interesting.
It's clickbait like crazy. Right. And they make money. It's like clipping. I think it's called clipping.
Right.
And so I'll find myself like, they just clipped a scene from Spaceballs. Right. And they end it like right before the punchline.
Right. So you gotta go to the next one.
Damn, and you can't just go to the next one. You gotta go to their page.
Right.
And then you go to the next one. So it pumps up their algorithm, right?
Right.
So then after I've like, I just spent like 20 minutes watching like some clip of like Field of Dreams, and like right at that feel good section. I'm like, I want to watch it. And then I'll be like, don't show me this content. Yeah. And then it filters out. Right. And then you can really, it's a really good tool if you can, have that willpower and curate it. But I just, I think social media is, they've changed the term now too, right?
Have they?
Yeah.
Where are we at now? Content? Something?
Because like Facebook was a social media platform. It was where you connected with your friends. But TikTok is a media platform. You don't connect anymore on TikTok. Right? You don't, it's not like me sharing with you. It's me putting media out there and entertaining the world.
Right. I see the difference.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's Gary Vee. You know Gary Vee?
Yes, I do. I don't watch a lot of him, but I do know. I see his quotes all the time. He's an entrepreneur. He's pretty aggressive.
He's my borderline of like I said, I try not to consume any negative media.
Yeah.
And he's on the board. Because he's positive, but the way he motivates people is kind of like how my dad was. Like, don't be a wimp.
Right.
Get out there and work,
Isn't that toxic masculinity? I'm just kidding.
Let me tell you. Yeah, Gary Vee is the definition. For sure. And my dad was too. Like, me, my brother, and my sister, JR, Michelle, and Shane, we had our toys and our sporting equipment. Y'all had your name on it. If you have siblings, your parents wrote your name on the tags, right? And my sister, Michelle, and my brother, Shane, he's the little one. And on my name's on my hockey helmet, going into the hockey change room with all the other kids. If my helmet rolled over, my gloves, my dad didn't put my name, he put wimp. Toxic masculinity at the peak, bro.
That's funny.
Like, you're gonna be a wimp. That's weak.
But that's, I feel like that's just how men challenge each other. That's how you challenge your friends. You call them a wimp. You're a punk. But they know you don't really mean that. It's like an encouragement sort of thing.
That's a good topic, Badir, you know, because like that is a friend. I don't know if that's all male friend groups, you know, but it's definitely how I grew up.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely in the sports community.
Sure.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the word jock because I would never compare myself to being a jock. But I definitely played all team sports and individual sports, you know, and teasing each other and like broing out, and when you're comfortable with someone to like make fun of them, and point out their. I used to always say to my best friend Nikki that I'm like, bro, you can't make fun of something that somebody can't change. So if your buddy is like getting a bit of a beer belly, you know, his legs might be skinny. You can make fun of that all day, you know. But if your buddy has like a big nose, you know, and Nick had a big nose, I would never dig. He would make fun of his nose, you know. Nicky, you know, but I would never. You know, you just can't. He's not gonna get plastic surgery, when we had some good rules between buddies, but we had it so bad that when we moved to Cayman, that we had to have like a truce. Like, hey, we can't make fun of each other as much because we don't know any of these people. Like our friends back home, it was like, who can make who cry first? But I think that's I don't think that's across all guys, you know, but definitely
not 100%.
Right? Some guys are just like, I don't want to feel that.
Yeah, and no, definitely. And some guys get the wrong end of the stick when it comes to that, like in school and stuff. Like they don't really have the comeback or whatever, and they don't have the friends to kind of stick up for them, and it just goes a little bit too far, and it doesn't quite work the same way.
I'll tell you what, that wimp on my hockey equipment teed me up for high school boys. And make fun of me all day. I'm like, none of you can make fun of me as much as my dad.
Interesting.
You know, and he wasn't. Some people would be like, "Yo, your dad's mean." Bro. The world's mean. You know, the world's a tough place. Right.
He kind of reminds me of your brother a little bit. Like I think your brother has that vibe.
Oh, for sure.
Like you're the middle child.
I'm the middle. My brother's younger. Shane. You know, we have our sibling rivalry that will last through time. You know, there's always that competition. So he always feels like I'm judging him. You know, and I love my brother, and you know, I try to be a big brother. I'm like, bro, you know, you gotta do this. He's like, oh, you judging me? And I'm not judging. I'm just trying to be a positive influence. But because of that, you know, he's always making fun of me. Like, oh, I'm not the corporate guy with 5 jobs working 100 hours a week until I die. You know, he's like, I want to live my life, and if I want to have a campfire, you know, and not wear shoes and fish and eat my fish for dinner that I caught, then why are you better than me? You know, and he's got a point. I'm envious of my brother because he doesn't care. He does not.
That's a great skill to have,
bro. Since we were kids, on my first job, I wanted to buy a pair of Nikes. So my paper, I'm 12 years old, bro. All my friends had Nikes. I'm wearing tracks. For those of you that know, TRAXX Velcro track shoes, like pre-Walmart guys, came up, you know, Sears shoes, and all my friends got Nikes, and I bought my first pair of shoes was a pair of Nikes, you know, because. But my brother
could care less about Nikes, right?
Yeah, bro. He didn't care if he had shoes on. You know, he didn't wear shoes because he couldn't get on the bus without them or something like that, right? Or maybe his feet would fall off in the winter. But you know, I've always been jealous of my brother.
Yeah,
for that,
those are definitely you know, interesting people where nothing kind of affects them like that, and they just kind of do their own thing, and that's it. Like, you know, there's no, you're not worried about what the other person's saying, and you know, it's like. Yeah, I do envy that a little bit as well, I have to say. You do meet those people every now and then, and they're just a little bit more refreshing, and they're a little more real. You know, this is who I am. They're not holding anything back, you know?
I think it's about living in the moment too. You know, like when I reflect on him and his lifestyle where he's like, hey, it's time to eat. You know, and I'm going to focus right now on cooking this food, catching this fish. You know, we grew up hunting and fishing as kids, you know, and he would really be in the moment and want to be the best, like how he's baiting that hook and how his lines are in the water, you know, like, you know, fishing was a big part of our childhood. Man, before school, he would be in diapers and I would be like going to kindergarten. I think I wasn't even in school yet. We would be getting up before our parents got up. go out to the canal and check our traps.
Uh-huh.
And like, I can see him in diapers, like, and my mom was always scared about us falling in the canal, and we had these like little traps with them. We catch crayfish and all these different little fish and stuff. And, we were always doing it. I wasn't as into it as him, but he loved it, and I was like being an older brother, trying to impress my brother. And I don't know if that was like part of what made him, really like to catch his food, where I never really got the hunting bug as he did. But, being focused on it for him when he's doing that, I'd be up hunting, and for those of you that have ever gone deer hunting, you have to have the right kind of mind, because you go in 5:30 before the sun rises at like 9, that time of year. You go out and you sit in a bush stand for 4 hours, and you can't talk. You're just looking and you're focusing. And for me, I'm like, all right, what outfit am I wearing next week, Tuesday, when I go to school? Yeah. What did Tommy say to me? How about this? How about that? And my brother's like, was that a leave? Was that? And he's focused on that in that moment, and I've never been. I've always had trouble with focus.
Yeah. You're an intuitive. Do you know your MBTI?
No.
Yeah, you're an intuitive like me, because maybe I'm wrong, but you like the abstract ideas and concepts. You're talking about religion. I know you're into crypto. I'd love to talk about it too, right? So you're like, so you tend to think about those things, and it's harder to live in the moment when you're that kind of person, because you're not thinking about what's around you. You're thinking about, that cool idea. Yeah, that's a good project. And like, I think, I think that's kind of how you are. Whereas I think your brother's a sensor. He's like in the moment of the world and what's this is in front of me. And
perfect way to describe it. I really like that. Yeah. And before we get into crypto, when you talk about that, that's why I love some of the sports that I participate in, because of
I know where you're going with this. I love that you're about to say this, but keep going.
The force to focus.
Yes.
When you, and I mean, I think it's not just sports even. I'm sure it could be you, like when you're putting together like a film.
When you're on set.
You need to focus. Yeah. You can't think,
about anything else. Yeah.
I definitely get hyper-focused when I'm surfing, when I'm skateboarding. Obviously, there's times you're surfing, you're waiting for a wave. Your brain's going everywhere. But when those waves start flowing and you're like, I could die. Right? It's like on big days, but other days when it's small, and you're just like those moments I really live for, when I'm just hyper focused and in the moment. That moment. Oh, it's so
because you're not like that naturally, but it forces you to when you're playing sports. I think about that's so funny that you said that, because same thing for me, I played a lot of team sports as well, like football and stuff. And like when someone's chasing you and you're like, you got to like move and it's like, you're just so in the moment and you just enjoy. It's kind of a relaxation for us because we're always thinking.
100%.
Right. So to come out of that and to live in the moment it feels good, because we don't really get to experience it that often.
Did you play a lot of football when you were young?
I did. Yeah. I did. Yeah. I did it all, man. Like you, just, we did soccer, obviously, played basketball, played baseball, softball, flag football, a little bit of rugby.
We had a
more team stuff.
My dad, when we moved into the suburbs, he got me and my brother. We were probably like grade 5. I was grade 5. 2 shovels. He said, dig a hole 4 feet deep, 4 by 4 foot, and I'm gonna give you a basketball net. We had this cool driveway that was like it went straight and then it curved into the garage, and the straight section was like a perfect half court.
Right.
And my brother and I that summer, man, I think we dug for like 2 weeks.
Right.
No pick at, like just we're little kids. And he'd come out and he'd be like, man, it's not deep enough yet.
So did he need this hole, or was he just getting
it was for our basketball net, right? Like I'll give you guys a basketball net, but you got to dig the hole.
Right.
And I remember, man, we have blisters and we're digging that hole. I mean, when you're in grade 5, how tall are you? 2, 3 feet? I mean, 2.5, 3 feet tall. Yeah. You wanted it 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet deep. And man, it literally, and we got our friends, come over to help us dig this hole. We're like, he bought the basketball net, put it there.
So you could see
on the
it.
side, like, I mean, I think we spent a couple weeks on that, but basketball, and I'm only 5'8", 5'8.5" when I was younger. But I mean, I was late I was a little kid always.
Yeah.
And, you know, basketball, we had the adjustable basketball net.
Yeah.
Every kid in the neighborhood playing ball at our house.
Yeah.
Basketball was a big part of my childhood. You know, and that team sport, once again, it was like, you know, you play teams, you play one-on-one, you play, you know, all the different
Lightning. Did you ever play Lightning? Do you remember that game?
I don't know. When we
Because
had
the same
a different
thing.
name.
What's that?
Was that when you were like, we might have a different name for it.
So you lined up at the free throw line.
Yeah.
And then I think there's like 2 balls. But everyone lines up. So the first person goes and they shoot.
Yeah.
If they score, they get the ball and they throw it to the next person, like the third person, and then the second person goes. If he misses and he has to go run and get the ball, and then the person behind him shoots and scores, then that person's out. And so you just keep going like that.
We 100% played that.
Yeah.
I think we had a different name for it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember that. We had so many games, right?
Yeah.
And ball was awesome. But once again, it was another time, especially as a kid, you know, to be focused and applied in those moments was such a good thing. It just leads up to, you know, kids need to be busy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and that, like, adults, I think we get tired and drained, so we enjoy downtime.
Right.
But, you know, what did they say in church? Idle hands or the devil's hands.
Is the devil's work or something? Yeah, that's true. I relate to that.
That's definitely for a kid, for sure, right? You get in trouble when there's nothing to do.
Huh. Yeah, no, in our neighborhood too, we had like a half court, man, and we played all the time. It was
Do you have the adjustable or full size?
That particular one is full size, but there was a couple of adjustables in the neighborhood. Luigi had one. We'd be dunking a lot on that one. It's.
And was there many fights?
Not really. I mean, maybe a couple of disagreements here and there, but not a lot of fights. I don't think. Yeah.
It was such an interesting thing in my childhood where friends would fight, full on duke it out,
Right.
and the next day.
They're good. They're good.
You know,
I think that's a guy thing as well.
For sure. I mean, girls don't do that. They hate each other forever. Yeah, let's not even get into that. Yeah, that's a topic that we talked about. Topics we can and can't discuss.
Yeah.
You know, my position on that.
That's funny because before we started the podcast, you're like, should we be political? Yeah, okay. It's too late for that.
I would rather talk politics than talk about girls. Okay.
They will crucify us. Yes. Shan's watching right now. She's very disappointed in us.
Love you, Sean. Oh man. So someone said on my way over here that and I don't know how I didn't know this because I've skimmed some of your podcasts that you do like to talk a little bit of what I like to call playing crypto.
You know it, baby. You know it. I noticed we're in the group. I don't think you and I have really ever talked crypto.
I don't think so. I know we definitely have.
But I know you're in the group.
I'm in a couple.
Yeah. So
I
I've
was
seen
a lot
you
more
post.
active before.
Sure. So what's your journey like? How did you first get into this?
It's funny, man, because you know I hope I'm going to send this video to you, Craig. When I moved back to Cayman after my rollover in 2012, I was following this Business Insider blog, right? And I started probably reading that in 2009, I think, or right, 2010, 2009. And it was talking about Bitcoin, you know, and I was kind of following its journey. And I came back to Cayman in May 2012, and I was like so pro Bitcoin. I was like, I want Bitcoin. But I didn't really like have that epiphany until I came back to Cayman. And as those of you that would know in those times, it was really hard to onboard money into Bitcoin and a lot of scams. Like send them your money, you never got the Bitcoin. So I went to my accountant, who's my age at K-Brew, and I told him about it. I was like, hey man, I'm not asking your opinion on what Bitcoin is because Craig is the opposite of me, man. That dude, I have so much respect for him. Like school, work, family, you know, like follow the safe and, you know, invest, you know what I mean? He's done really good for himself.
Traditional.
You know,
it
just
works.
Hard work, get through. Like he's the definition of that. And I knew that he would be very cautious about Bitcoin, but I was like, I don't need you to tell me what you think about Bitcoin because I believe in it. Help me find a safe onboard.
Right.
You know, like help me with the due diligence side, like how we could actually. And I was like, I got $2,000 saved up. I will invest that on behalf of us. I don't even need you to put money in.
Right.
Just tell me how we could get,
Let's get this Bitcoin.
Do that for me, bro. Yeah. And he like, I would bug him, and he's like, all right, finally looked into it. It's all a scam. He's like, I can't confidently tell you, how that we can onboard money without it being a scam. Like
You're going to lose the money.
Yeah, and I think he was kind of one part talking about Bitcoin, but I was like, please, it's not about the Bitcoin. I believe in that. It's about how do we get it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what I want you to do.
Stop trying to convince me that it's a scam.
I'm gonna put the money
I
in, bro.
want the Bitcoin. How do I get it?
And we didn't do it.
Yeah.
And this is May 2012.
Yeah.
And you all know that followed the journey. It pumped.
Yeah.
Right? It pumped. And I was like, great. And then it tanked.
Yeah.
All within like the next couple months, And he was going to me like, look, told you. Yeah. And that was right when that guy got busted for
which
for
one?
The black market stuff.
Was it Silk Road?
Silk Road thing, that kid,
the
right?
guy that just got out of prison that Trump pardoned?
I don't know. Yeah. Whoever the first guy was, he was a young guy, got busted, Silk Road, doing that dodgy stuff with crypto, right? And that's what made it tank. At that time, and he just threw it in my face. He's like, I told you it was a scam. We would have lost all our money. And I was like, let's double down. This is our chance. Let's do it, man. Let's buy now, because it went even lower. I want to say it was at like 35. It went to like 100, and then it went down to like 5. And I was like, let's buy it, man. Let's buy it. And we didn't. Obviously, because I'd be rich. That's always a funny speculative thing, because, when would you have sold?
Right.
I doubled my money, I was sold that.
Right. People are always like, yeah, I could have bought it when it was like $5. When would you have sold it?
At 10, right?
Would you have kept it to 100,000?
Yeah, exactly.
Ross Ulbricht, that's who it was. He just got pardoned.
Did he really?
Yeah, by Trump.
Wow.
He was at the Bitcoin conference like a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he had a speech there.
Yeah.
A lot of people from Cayman went.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So 2012, that's super early. I remember hearing about it then, but just sort of not.
Yeah, so
I wasn't trying to buy any.
Yeah, we I kind of lost interest again for that. And then when we started the lodge, 2018, Paul and I, we wanted to, have some cutting edge stuff, and we figured out how we could accept Bitcoin as payment and any crypto. That's when we started. That's when all like the crypto groups started popping up on the island.
Okay.
We would advertise. I had like a Bitcoin thing behind the bar.
Cool.
We had this app, and it was nobody ever paid in Bitcoin. Except one night.
Yeah.
One faithful night.
Yeah.
We're killing time, eh?
It's an hour already. Let me know when you got to go, and we can always do it again.
Yeah, all right. So, excuse me. This is a feel-good story, guys. So if we're going to end on something, let's end on a real feel-good story. So it's Friday night. Bar's full. I'm bartending. There's 2 couples are there from America, and they're having a great time. We got live music on. If you've ever been to the lodge, we were trying to be like live music, and then it moved into a DJ,
I remember.
And we had this couple there. They're sitting at the bar, just enjoying themselves, and they paid for the drinks, left a really nice tip, and said, we'll be back tomorrow. And the next night was karaoke. Saturday nights, we had an awesome karaoke night. And so that's cool. Night goes by. Next night, the night's getting started. Karaoke, unfortunately, for those of you that run and work in the bar industry, Saturday, everything closes at 12. No one comes out till 11. We would start karaoke at like 8 o'clock, but it didn't get busy till 11. And this couple showed up at like 8:30. Right. These 2 couples.
Right.
And I saw them, there's no one in the bar yet.
Yeah.
And I saw them walking across the parking lot, and the vibe, like they didn't look happy. And the guys sat down and the outside, and the girls came in, and they're like, we wanted to say hi. We're probably not going to stay. They didn't get into any details. They're like, we just want to say hi. The boys are out there not feeling it, And I'm like, let me get you guys a drink. This is why I have no money, right? I'm like, let me get you guys a drink. They're not even going to stay. And I'm just thinking, like, let me, something's wrong. You know what I mean? Here, I don't know what.
Yeah.
So I made them a couple pina coladas or some Caribbean drink, Cayman lemonades. I was like, take these, go do what you guys got to do.
Right.
Maybe you'll come back later if things feel better.
Right.
We take the drinks outside, give them to the guys, and they tell them that I didn't charge them.
Yeah.
I think I saw something was not right.
Right.
And the guy's face just lit up. It's just like I could see him explaining it to him, and he just like sat up straight. And they came inside and they sat down. They're like, you know what, we're gonna stay. And he tells me the story. He's like, I don't remember it exactly for detail, but they had a death in the family. Like his sister's lost her baby or something really, really heavy,
Yeah.
And they were like, we're not feeling it about being here, but that was like such a nice gesture, what you just did. We're going to stay here for a bit. And they stayed, that was like 8:30. It goes on, we start talking about crypto. He's like, oh, I got the little Bitcoin sign. He's like, oh, you accept Bitcoin? No, it's cool. And actually, it wasn't even him. It was his wife. She's like, oh, you accept Bitcoin? She's like, yeah, my guy, he's into Bitcoin a little bit. And I'm like, oh, cool, and I'm starting to get busy now. And then he goes to the bathroom, and she leans over and she goes, because they had asked me, can they pay in Bitcoin? And I'm like, yeah, like for sure, right? It's the first time, right? And, she leans over and she's like, hey, he's the first Bitcoin billionaire. Okay. This guy,
right?
She's like, he's the first,
right?
And I'm like, so this would have been 2019, maybe 2020, before COVID, and I'm getting a little bit of shivers, and she's like, he's so stoked that you guys accept Bitcoin,
right?
And so then he comes back from the bathroom, and we're talking about Bitcoin. Now we're chatting the chat, and I'm a host, so I don't dig right in. I beat around the bush a bit, right? Sure. And he's like, it's so cool that you do that. He's like, you know what? He's like, how much is everybody's tab right now at the bar that's here? And we weren't busy yet. Now it's like 10:30, it's just about to get busy.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't know. It's like probably like a couple grand, And he's like, look, I'm going to transfer you Bitcoin. And I want to pay for everyone's tab. And I want to pay for everyone's tab that comes in for the rest of the night. And he's like, and to show you my good faith, because at the time, when you transfer a Bitcoin, I think it was like $3,500 or something like that at the time, 38. It took a while, like hours, for it to actually hit your wallet.
Yeah, you go through phases where the blocks are pretty like tight or whatever, and so you can't.
And even back then, like the tech, you know what I mean? I think I had like a trust wallet. I might have used coin payments. I don't know what it was.
Right.
And so I was like, man, I
hasn't
wasn't
come through yet.
And he's buying, like, telling me to tell everyone at the bar they don't have to pay their tab.
Right.
So he pulls out his wallet, and he's got like 500 in U.S. cash, and he's like, "Here, hold this.
Yeah.
It's not going to cover everyone's tab, but I just want you to show you in good faith."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Look, here's my ID. Take a picture of this."
Yeah.
And he's like, and then he transfers me a Bitcoin. And I'm like crying, because this is like. So this would have been 2019 off season, like September, and I couldn't pay payroll that week.
Right.
I couldn't pay rent. It was like a heavy week for us. Slow season time of the year. I think it was like October. Yeah. And I was like, Lord, I need a miracle.
Yeah.
And this dude drops $3,500 in a Bitcoin into my wallet.
Yeah.
And I'm like crying. I'm just like, he's like, you were so nice to us. Your hospitality was so great. Transfers me a Bitcoin. I'm scared, right? Because now I'm telling people, he's like, don't go on the mic. I don't want anyone to know it's me.
Yeah.
Just tell people they don't have a tab.
Right.
Tell people their tab's been taken care of.
Right.
But the tab's only like $2,500.
Right.
He just transferred me $3,800.
Right.
And I'm like, well, what do you want me? And then time comes up to close the night, and I've had tears. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Bro, honestly, I wasn't gonna be able to pay rent, but this is gonna push me over, And he's like, "Oh, I'm so happy I could do that for you." And I'm like, "But it's only like $3,000 we sold that night. I don't even think it was $3,000. It was like under $3,000." And he's like, "The rest is for you, for your business." And man, I was just crying. I'm trying to fight the tears back right now, man. It was just like a moment that the prayers were answered, and it was because of crypto, it was through crypto. I don't, like, you know, people got rich on crypto. People made tons of money. Yes, people lost a lot of money. I lost a lot of money. I only lost money I made. I never lost real cash.
Sure.
But he injected, you know, because of crypto, a lot of guys got rich and girls, and they injected money back, you know, into the communities, because these people were rags to riches people, you know. And this guy, he's like, his wife's like, yeah, he does this every like once a week, where he just like gives someone a Bitcoin. Can you imagine today? 100,000. I mean, I flipped that Bitcoin, you know, the next day to get the cash so I could pay the bills.
Right.
You know, and like gave my staff members fat tip. That, you know, it's funny because they were like, well, there's $1,000 difference. You know, that's our tip. Really, we're gonna split that, right? And I'm like, no. I'm like, he gave us that to pay the bills. You know, here's like, they still got they made $500 or something like that. I was like, it's still a really good tip, but you know, because Bitcoin made him a multi-millionaire, whether he was a billion. I mean, he's a billionaire today for sure, if he held. You know, it did a lot of good for the world. People got scammed. I got scammed, bro. I got scammed for like $15,000. $15,000.
Scammed on what? Not Bitcoin, though.
Not Bitcoin, man. It was SafeMoon. You remember that one?
I remember hearing about it.
Dude, I made like 25 G's on it.
Yeah.
And then I got scammed out 15.
How do you get scammed? They just dropped, the price dropped, the rug pulled? What happened?
I got scammed because I joined Discord. How many Discords are you on?
None.
Watch out for Discord. Everybody in the crypto space, especially then, was on Discord.
Yeah.
I was all stoked about learning, and I'm making money, and I killed SafeMoon. I 20x'd my money on SafeMoon.
Yeah.
Paul and I first killed it on Dogecoin.
Right.
Paul comes to me and he's like, yo, dodgy coin. He's like, I just bought $200. It was like 1/10 a cent. And I was like, Paul can't have dodgy coin. I don't have dodgy coin. So, and I'm like, Paul, it's Dogecoin. He's like, no, it's dodgy coin. So we bought it, you know, and I made Paul sell. We took our $100. We made like, I think he put in like 200. So he made like 2,000, 2,500. I made like $1,000. We 10x, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, Paul, we got to sell. This is going to tank. And I had Paul sell it like 3 cents. He was so mad.
Wow.
Because then it went on the run, right?
Wow.
But anyway, so we had some fun runs. But in SafeMoon, I get on the Discord. I'm up 25 grand. I probably put in a couple hundred, but I had no money at the time. But I was like, oh, a couple $100.
Yeah.
This, we could use Binance from Cayman back then, right? So you could just charge it on your card. And I got into this Discord, and someone on there said SafeMoon media admin, had the title, had the, you know, representing SafeMoon, and they're like, hey, we're trying to build traffic. And you hear about a lot of, I don't know what the term is, where they fluff these coins, right? They fake the trading, you know what I mean? There's actual trading, but just internally, right? So SafeMoon was like, hey, when you transfer us X, we give you Y. So transfer it back to SafeMoon, and then we give it back to you, and that creates all that traffic, right? So they were pretty much like, you know, you give us 1,000, we give you 1,500, and they got me on like the same way that most of those scams run. I'm like, let me transfer you 100.
Right.
So I transfer them 100, they transfer me back 150. I transfer them 1,000, they transfer me back 1,500. I transfer them 10,000.
And that was it.
Dead. I'm going down the road, and the guy, not dead yet. I'm with money. I'm going on the road, and the guy's like, he's like, he's like, you need to give me like you need to do another transfer. You know, he got me for another 5 G's, dude. He got me for another 15 grand. That's like, you know, 3 months salary at the time, right? 4 months, 5 months salary, you know? And I was just like so deep into it, you know? And my girlfriend at the time was like, what's wrong with you? You know, like, you're not even like here. And I'm like, I know, I'm trying to like, I'm talking to these dudes. I got like all these Discords open. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, you know? And this dude, they just stole my money, man. It was even though it was money I made, You know, it wasn't cash that I pulled out of my pocket and put in, but
It's still your money.
Still hurt me.
Yeah.
I don't know how they sleep at night. You know,
Those people that do those scams, I know it's crazy, man. Like to have to like that's what you do. You know, this is a scam, and this is what we're gonna do. Like, and then you go all the way.
Dumb people to give us their money,
like,
man.
Damn. That's
I mean, maybe in the crypto space, they're like, "Yo, easy come, easy go. Let's take these crypto kids' money."
Yeah.
I don't know, but man, it hurt. It hurt a lot. So,
but it was cool. A good story about the Bitcoin guy, and
that was awesome.
I find the thing about Bitcoiners is that they love sound money, so they like sound money practices and principles. So they tend to have a good ideology, and they tend to be, kind and giving, right? So it's not, people think of it as a get rich quick thing, whereas I think Bitcoiners, they don't have that perspective actually.
And you hit the nail on the head, because everybody that needs to know altcoins and crypto, right, is like this whole gambling, risk taking.
I didn't say it.
Yeah, I don't know about that word, right? But you know what I mean? There's some high risk in that,
right?
Where, hey, same high risk as investing in a bar.
Sure.
Same high risk as investing in a restaurant.
Sure. Right. We're not saying there's anything wrong with it, right?
Right, yeah.
Right,
risk taking investment. But, like you said, Bitcoin people, man, they invest and they hold. They're not flipping. They're not trading. They're not.
They're not scamming.
Right. You know what I mean? And I'm sure there's been a couple around it. I'm getting some messages, like I feel like I'm live because I'm getting random messages, but this is going to go live later, and I know I'll get messages then. But, the Bitcoin community is definitely, a lot more secure. And unfortunately, I've sold pretty much all of my Bitcoin through, when we had the bar, we had to sell it to stay open. Bitcoin got us through COVID, man.
Yeah.
Selling our Bitcoin,
right.
Carried our bar through COVID.
Right, interesting.
Selling Bitcoin for me carried me through some really hard times in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And so now I'm out.
Start stacking again.
Yeah.
I know it's hard when you're over 100,000, but the 0.0001 Bitcoin, like that's tough to swallow for $1,000.
It is, especially when I add like 3 Bitcoin.
I know. That's the thing about Bitcoin, though. It's like it's this ego thing at the same time.
It is.
It's like because you have to like suck it up and like, okay, I have to buy Bitcoin at 100,000 because I suck. Like, but
I wasn't responsible enough at risk taking 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Man, wow, an hour and a while has flown.
Hour and 15. That's typically how long they go. I definitely could keep talking. I know you got to go, so let's bring you back on because I don't think we really touched.
Didn't cover anything.
Yeah.
I talk too much.
No, man. This is you're an intuitive like me, right? I'm an ENTP. You got to figure out what the MBTI is.
I got to check that out. And before I go, I need some shameless plugs.
Oh yeah, sure. That's right.
I brought you a pair of sunglasses.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've known about Peripheral.
I have.
And
I used to rock them in the day until I always end up losing my shades. I won't lose this, though.
Everybody, we definitely...
Peripheral. So wait. Tell us about it. Where can we get it? What's up?
So Peripheral is Cayman Islands' only eyewear brand. There's been some stuff come through over the years, but Peripheral Life and Style.
Cool.
We are a active fashion wear. We started out at a very entry-level price point, but now we've brought in, a higher fashion. We're still not ultra high fashion, we're about $150 a pair, like what you're getting right there. And the big thing about our brand is, man, we do a huge donation structure. We definitely retail in stores, but when we sell direct through our website or any of our events, we're all about fundraising. And there's a large portion, like sometimes up to 50%, depending on where you're getting it and what channels you're buying it through, is donated to an individual, a group, or a cause of your choice.
I love it.
So you shop sunglasses, and then you shop causes. So you get to decide, all right, I love these shades, and now I want to pick where the marketing, it's really the marketing money, where that money's going to go. So then you're like, oh, I want to support the Humane Society or Cayman Hospice. You click on them, and then they get a portion of that sale.
How about JR's bank account? Can we put the money in there? This money is going everywhere except his bank account.
That's so true. Last year we donated over $85,000 to local charities, U.S. And this year we're a little bit under, but I have some new strategic partnerships, and we're going to definitely blow that out of the water next year.
Okay.
You know? We're going to take this brand globally.
Yeah.
And the philanthropy side of it. And, my dream and my mission in life is that I want to be a positive impact in my community. I want to help others and make money in the process.
Bro, you've always done that. You've always been impactful and positive.
That's what it's about.
And everyone likes you, and everyone has good things to say about you.
I don't know if everybody.
Well, it can't be 100%.
Yeah, it can't be perfect.
Most people do. Like, at least people I talk to and I've heard to, and I've always liked you.
Put my shades on too. Man.
Why not? Why not? You know. So
I was debating to wear them in the thing. I had to plug another local brand here.
Yeah, what's that one? I love the blue iguana. I see the blue iguana there.
Mariners Surf Co.
Ah, yes. I remember. Guys. I've heard about them.
Yeah, they make hats. They do a lot of community. What do you call it? Like they put the signs out at Starfish Point. About like how to treat the starfish.
Cool.
They do a lot of like environmental impact stuff on the island.
I like that. Yeah,
they're a really rad group of guys.
Okay.
It's about supporting local is a big thing for me. Trying to keep money into the local economy.
Yeah.
But also supporting creatives. And creatives is definitely something I wanted to touch on. So we're gonna have to come back to
definitely,
that.
man. I mean, there's a lot to go through. All of that we didn't even get into the creative side of things here in Cayman. Yeah,
that's another conversation.
So what's in that box?
Well, that's just I just brought a whole bunch. I wanted to make sure that for you, that I had a pair that you liked.
I love this. I love how it feels like on. So let me see how I look. How do I look?
Those look really good on you. They look really good on them. But
ooh.
are you? Or are you more like a round? Those are called the walls. These are called the mods.
I think it's these.
Yeah, I think those are more your style.
Yeah.
Sure. The round things like trending out there.
Okay.
But we've curated our brand. We have like our production runs, which these two are from that. These ones are also the DBs, named after a local celebrity chef.
Those are nice.
It's a bigger version of those. But we've curated our brand based off of corporate incentive travel. We do a lot of corporate groups that come to the island.
Okay.
And trying to have it, without having a million different styles, try to have enough to fit the different face shapes.
Right.
You can't please everybody. Black on Black is #1, hands down bestseller. I have all these fancy, fun colors. I don't know if I brought any, but #1 selling. Like we do some fun like rose gold, hot pink and different cool colors, which always attracts people. But Black on Black always sells.
Right. Right.
So
where do we find it? Where can we get it?
The best place is through our website. We deliver all over the island, all over the world.
Website? Now. What's the website?
www.plife.ky. So peripherallifeandstyle.com, but the shortcut's plife.ky.
Okay.
Check it out. That's the best way. We're in a bunch of stores on the island.
So you can buy them in stores.
Yeah, you get them on stores, but the donation isn't as big.
Yeah.
It's very limited because there's the retail markup in that whole spread.
Sure.
But, Diver Supply, Waterman's, the Ritz. Soon we were in 22 locations pre-COVID.
Wow.
But since then, I haven't had the chance to really focus on getting us back into stores on island.
Yeah.
And I had my own spot at the lodge. We used to sell them there
too.
That was
that's
our big
right.
showroom.
Yeah.
But hopefully, when the boys open.
Coral Beach,
the new World Ponds, they have a big retail space, and we want that to be our flagship.
Oh, cool!
Spot,
I love that. When's that pegged to open later this year?
Hopefully
for busy season.
Hopefully 2020. What year is that? How it goes in Cayman.
Yeah, I know.
Cool.
Yeah, man. Hey, well, you got a lot of people trying to get a hold of you, so thanks a lot for coming on. But I definitely want to do it again because we didn't really talk crypto that much. We didn't talk the creative scene, it was great. Thanks a lot for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.